The reason Epic gives away games for free is because they're trying to take market share from Valve. But that won't be enough to keep people on the platform, especially since people have their entire libraries already on Steam. When people look at Valve, they see a company that's not shooting themselves in the foot. They literally just do nothing and win, as the meme says. But below the surface, Valve is actually building things out, such as Proton and the Steam Deck. Some people might argue, okay, what about Windows 7? Windows 7 was just completely outside of Valve's control, especially with the whole Chromium situation. So the Steam client is built on top of Chromium, at least on the Windows side, and Google Chrome was being deprecated on Windows 7, which basically trickled down to the Steam client. So unless Steam is going to fork Chrome and maintain support themselves, or rebuild the entire Steam client for Windows from scratch, Windows 7 support was just gone. On the Linux side, that's not the case. You could literally reinstall the OS to Linux and the Steam client would work just fine there because Google can't just go and deprecate the entirety of the Linux system regardless of the age of the kernel. Windows 7 is different because Microsoft moved on from Windows 7 to Windows 8 to Windows 10 to Windows 11 now as they're ditching 10. And the point here is Windows 7 was completely outside of Valve's control and there was really nothing Valve could do in this situation. But even so, if there is something they can do and something they can build out, such as Linux, they're not going to go and sit there and just, oh, there's not enough users. They're actually going to put in the work and build out a platform. Proton and the Steam Deck are great examples of this. Meanwhile, you have Epic here saying they won't bring their games or they won't bring support unless it has tens of millions of users. And that's really the classic Linux chicken and egg problem. Companies don't want to port their programs over to Linux because it doesn't really have much of a user base, and users don't want to migrate to Linux because it doesn't have the programs or the software they want to use, even though they really want to leave Windows. Some people will look at this and go, okay, wait, the Heroic Launcher exists on Linux, and that's what allows you to access the Epic Game Store on Linux. Well, the thing here is, the Heroic Launcher is built and maintained by the community. It has no involvement, to my knowledge, from Epic whatsoever. And even so, it is built on top of the work Valve put in on the Linux side. Epic is by no means supporting gaming on Linux in any form or fashion, or even putting in the proper investments in order to do so. Because in some instances, such as Fortnite, Epic really doesn't have to put any investment at all into the Linux side. All they have to do is basically remove their blockade. Yes, you can play the Android version of Fortnite on Linux, but you can't play the Windows PC version because of Epic's anti-cheat, and they refuse to update it. And that's literally all they have to do to bring Fortnite to the Linux side, is update the anti-cheat. But I understand, games are hard to update. Oh, well, not in this case when you're cranking out many seasons. All you have to do is update the anti-cheat. While most games would be hard to update, that is not the case here with Epic because they're already cranking out updates and they literally have to update a singular component to bring it to Linux and then check a checkbox. And they refuse to do so. This is just outright refusal because you, Valve, instead of actually going and supporting a small subset, why wouldn't you want an extra 2 to 4% people playing your game from a simple update? Updates that you already bring into the game with new expansions and seasons. From a company and a business perspective, if you could get a free 2 to 4%, why wouldn't you do it? Especially when your competitor is literally doing all the work for you on supporting your game. And speaking of anti-cheats, while I'm on the subject, people really hate kernel level anti-cheat, but there really isn't a better way to do anti-cheats nowadays, is there?
So we have here our cheater, Black Paw Spy Kid. You haven't seen this. If he tries to hit me, he can't use shells on me. And he can't touch me. I go straight through him. So if he uses a Mega or a Star, it's meaningless.
There is no way the Mario Kart Wii community built a better anti-cheat than these multi-billion-dollar companies.
He also can't actually remove my bananas. If he slips on them, the banana doesn't actually vanish. Because I'm cancelling his events out. And that's one of the events that gets cancelled. I destroyed your item.
Alright, so I'm going to give a bit of a background to Ignorance is Bliss here. Ignorance is Bliss was made to run on a dual-core PowerPC chip for the Wii, while it was simultaneously running Mario Kart Wii in the process. And Mario Kart Wii, if you're playing the normal game and not trying to do anything crazy, will still run at 60 FPS. If you're trying to do crazy things like item rain or a 24-player room, you'll probably be knocked down to 30 FPS depending on how complex the track is. Well, item rain, you're almost guaranteed to always be knocked down to 30 FPS because there's just sheer craziness all around you. But I digress. The point here is, Ignorance is Bliss is running on a much lower power chip, much lower than our modern computers, as I said, a dual-core PowerPC chip, versus our modern 6, 8, 16-core x86 ones. And from what I understand with Ignorance is Bliss, what they're doing is they're checking certain memory values and certain memory ranges to see, hey, are they spawning in items? Are they doing something they're not supposed to? And that's really all these anti-cheat solutions have to do. They don't have to be kernel level, or the only kernel level they actually need is an API provided by Microsoft to assign a specific memory address range for the game or the application. And then all the anti-cheat has to do is monitor those memory ranges to see, are you doing something to the game that you shouldn't be doing? Or alternatively, arrange in a GPU memory to see if you're turning things on like bounding boxes. All you really have to do is monitor these aspects. But instead, we have this kernel level anti-cheat that is literally spying on your whole system instead of spying on the specific attributes that need to be looked on. And now that I think about it, I really wouldn't put it past Valve to make a merge request to the Linux kernel to have an API to set specific memory address ranges for applications to make an anti-cheat similar to Ignorance is Bliss. That sounds like something Valve would really do. Make a better anti-cheat that is more efficient and is more effective than all these other kernel level anti-cheats and implement it into one of their own in-house games. And going past that, if this is the game Epic really wants to play, the community isn't really going to get sad that, oh no, there's no Fortnite. You know what they're going to do? They're going to cheer instead. There's no Fortnite or Roblox, Linux W. They don't really care that you're not here. If you don't want to support their platform and you want to go and actively attack it, they'll cheer instead of getting sad. And I'm all here for it because I'll get these nice and lovely threads on Reddit. And this is the way it is because one of these companies is a private company. And while they do take a bigger share of revenue than Epic and pocket some of it, they also take some of that revenue and reinvest it into the community and into the platform to make the gaming experience just better in some way. Meanwhile, Epic is just simply trying to be a wealth extractor and pay shareholders instead. That is the difference between these two companies. So Epic can really go and keep bleeding money into giving things away for free and paying studios to launch their games exclusively on the Epic Game Store. But at the end of the day, if they don't find a way to actually support the community and actively support the ecosystem, they shouldn't expect the same amount of support from the gaming community. And eventually they'll have shareholders to answer to as well because this can't keep going on forever.